It is not too late, and you're never too old. And we do have evidence out there. It's just not enough. We have to have those role models that show you, hey, no, I'm not too bulky. No, I can do this. I'm not too old. And you're right. We need to see more of this, and people need to hear it more. But when you hear what happens if you do nothing, I'm hoping that may inspire people.
Hey, everybody. We've had some of the most incredible guests coming to you these past couple of months. The amount of expertise and knowledge on these cutting edge topics is something we really hope that you enjoy. And if you do, it would make a huge difference to us if you could rate, review, and subscribe the podcast. It helps us to get more guests, better experts, and talk about all of the things that are really important to you. So give us a love, give us a lot of love, and don't forget to subscribe so you get all our new episodes. Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I'm Rachel, and I have the woman today, the woman you've been waiting to hear from. I am so excited. I've been looking forward to this interview for like a week, Ginny. It's so awesome to have you here.
Well, thank you very much. That's what a great intro.
I have Ginny Maccoll, guys, and if you don't already know her, you probably do already know her because she is our resident ninja warrior. She has appeared on 3 seasons of American Ninja Warrior and was just crowned in the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest female ninja competitor. Your story is just so inspiring. We've worked with you for a number of years through CVG, as well as your daughter, Jessie, and watched your evolution through this sport. And it's just been nothing short of inspiring.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a long journey, actually. I'm 73 years old, so I have a lot of background to catch you up on that led through this long journey. But I'm really excited to be here, and I've got to tell you that it is the best time of my life.
Oh, I can't I can't say enough how much I think that means to women really at every point in their journey. But just hearing that the best is yet to come is just such a message that we all really need. And it's really not the message that is being fed in mainstream media, especially to women.
Yes.
So, this is why this episode is one you guys need to hear, your daughters need to hear, your moms need to hear. Every woman in your life needs to hear that the best is yet to come because Ginny is a shining example of that. And you got your first pull up at 63, which is now 10 years ago. Ginny.
Yes,
Oh
that is
my
true.
god. Oh my god. I doesn't feel I feel like I watched your first ball. It's just very strange. Um
Well, the thing
you
about it too is that I had never been in sports in my life. Now, I was a dancer, but I'd never walked into a gym ever. And back in my day, we didn't really have that many women's sports. In my high school, we only had track, swimming, and volleyball, and I didn't do any of those. So, cheerleading, majoretting, those kind of things were what was available at that time. I mean, Title IX changed everything for women, and you can see that with my daughter, how she got a full ride and a scholarship for pole vaulting. So, I mean, things have changed dramatically, but they haven't changed enough for sure. And there's so many stereotypes out there that we're trying to defeat, actually. Like, you don't want to get bulky because it's not feminine, or women shouldn't lift weights, um, or life is downhill after 50, or older employees can't learn new things, or you can't get stronger as you age. And these are terrible messages that are still out there, and people still think that. And it's such a disservice to women, to people, to aging population, because you can get stronger in your age. All of those things are incorrect. And I'm a living example of being able to start, lifting weights at 63.
Which is just, I think, one of the main reasons why you are such an inspiration is not, this incredible athletic career throughout your life and then sort of continuing on, which is equally as inspiring, but this isn't something that you always had. And I love that you brought up, you know, growing up in the generation that you did and the lack of availability of these ideas of fitness, strength training, even sports for women. And I want to ask you, what got you started on this at 63, having not had an extensive background in athletics? Did you have like a why moment, or did you have like one moment where you were just like, you know what, this isn't good enough. I think I can do more.
I did have a why moment, actually. And that was, I was in that period of time in that midlife where you're driving your kids everywhere, you're working from 9 to 5, you don't have time to do any of that. But I did have time, of course, to cheer on my daughter, Jessie Graff, in American Ninja Warrior. And she, to me, just looked so healthy and strong and confident, and she had muscles. And she's told me recently that I used to be very impressed with that when she was in gymnastics too, because it was just such a foreign thought to me that these muscles could look so great. And so I said to her that this was my why moment. I wanted to get stronger. I didn't want to lose weight. I didn't want to do any of those other things. It was totally on getting stronger. And so she told me a couple of ideas of what to do. And one of them was pull-ups, and pull-ups was something like, "Oh, okay, well, let me start there," which I had no upper body strength. But that was I remember it like it was yesterday when I'm sitting there looking at her as she gracefully goes through this incredible obstacle course, and just went, "I'm gonna get stronger." But funny story about that, when, I got one of the bars and I put it in the door frame, and and I had little handles that hung down to it, and I'm working my way through it as best I could, and I sent her a video, and and I said, "Look what I've done." And she went, "Oh, that's great. I'm so excited that you're working towards this and you're doing this, but that's not a pull-up." And I went, "What?" She said, "You have to pull the bar to you all where your chin goes over the bar, and then straight on all the way down, a strict pull-up." And I went, "I'm going to a personal trainer, and I have a goal of 5 pull-ups." So that's where that started, was watching her and then going to a personal trainer, because since I had never lifted weights in my life, I didn't wanna do it wrong and hurt myself. This is something I see in classes a lot. I mean, a teacher doesn't necessarily have the time to go to, 20 different people and tell them how to stand and how to start it with, they go through the class. So I see a lot of, rolled shoulders. I think see bad form, and no wonder people get hurt. And so that's one of my big messages, is get someone who can work with seniors or whatever your age you are, and learn the proper form first before you start doing things.
I think that's such great advice because I think, and sure, absolutely, it's definitely more of a concern as we age because our recovery time for an injury
Correct.
is just not the same. But I think that this is a commonality of women of many ages, holding them back from strength training because of the fear of getting injured and not having that background in strength training as some men have had, where, like, they were on the football team in high school and they've been lifting in the gym since they were in 6th grade. Whereas in women's sports, strength training is been a little slower to come to accompany the
Right.
sports. So, not having that background, I think that's really, really great advice. And, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your experience as a woman growing up in the generation you did, and how that sort of shaped how you brought up Jessie, because clearly as you said, she's an extremely motivated person. That's first of all. But she had the opportunity of going to college on a full ride for an athletic talent, and that is just not something that was available to your generation. And I wanted to talk to you a second about, the differences between those two and how they affected how you kind of approached raising her.
Wow, I had so many thoughts while you were asking that question. I'm not sure where to begin. Um, well, I would say with myself, my parents never exercised at all. I did not see that. We didn't have a gymnastics studio close to my home, but I used to practice, trying to do a back bend and a walkover and all those things in the backyard. So that's a love that I just, you know, had early on, but it wasn't available to me. What was available was dance, and that was like interpretive dance. So it helped me get out of my shyness. It's a form of communication, but I love the movement. I loved being able to talk through, you know, a dance. And so I went to college to get to be when I went to college, I wanted to get a dance education degree. And that was learning to teach dance. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted to dance. And I made a plan to go to New York and try to be a professional dancer. And this was when I was 20. So I left college and I it was quite a jolt to the system because I was raised in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I moved to New York City. So that was an incredible experience itself, but I was surprised that my parents let me make those choices at that age. But, so many people said, "Why are you gonna trying to go to New York? You can't make it there. Nobody makes it there except for a very, very few people." So that continued in my life, like, "No, you can't do this. You're not gonna be able to do this. There's no gymnastic studio here. There's nothing that can help you in the way your dream." But I realized that my parents got married during, the World War II, and they got married very young. So they figured 2021, which is when they were married, uh, you can make your own choices. So off I went to New York, and I was determined. Again, I had another goal, and the goal was 3 to 5 years. And I danced every day. I, walked 40 blocks to get to the dance studio so I didn't have to spend money. I everything was oriented around dance. And I started to audition for Broadway and got a show called Pippin, which was in 1974. It was the best of the best when it comes to dance. And so that was the top of my life right then, I thought, being on a Broadway show with Bob Fosse as a choreographer. It was a wonderful time. Um, and just after that, I got married, had both kids, and unfortunately, the marriage didn't last and ended up being a single mom. And this is where Jessie comes into it mostly, I think. Um, when she was young, she did just about everything I did. She was like a little mini me. And living in the Poconos was a very harsh reality. I had to find a job for the first time. A real job is what we called it. And that was difficult with two kids. But I ended up teaching dance, and she took all my classes. She saw me have to struggle through this life in the middle of blizzards and bear in the woods and bats in the house and and potholes in the road and filling them in. And she learned. I asked her this afterwards, and I said, "What did you learn about that experience? When we were in the the deep woods, as I call it." And she said, "I learned to be self-sufficient." And so I thought, well, this is really good. Let me ask my son how he feels. And he said, that he learned never to give up. So out of sometimes, like Jessie says, sometimes the best things come out of the worst things. And this was a wonderful upbringing for them. And they didn't have the cell phones and the computer and the cable TV. They lived outside and did all sorts of sports, and we, played and ran and swam. And so it was a great existence. At the same time, it was very hard to make a living. So I think she learned a lot of that at that time, taking all my classes, which were in dance, and I saw how easily she took to, just beginning stages of gymnastics. And she went elsewhere because I didn't have that knowledge. So then I basically watched what she could do, and my son was in baseball, totally different. So that's the time, that I developed a little bit of a 20-minute exercise routine that would just keep me in shape and maintain things. But I think she learned mostly from watching me realize that nobody else is going to do this for me. I have to do this. And it would just be, okay, if I can't do it this way, then let me adapt and find a different way. And I notice that she does that a lot in American Ninja Warrior, where she'll look and go, I'm not the strongest athlete out there, but if you work your way through it and adapt and go, okay, he's doing it this way, but that's not the best way for me to do it. Let me come up with another way. So the adaptation became very important as to, okay, maybe you can't do this, but there's maybe another way that you can. So taking away the negativity, but let's find how we can make this work.
Well, I don't think there's ever been telling you no to anything, because I'm not very surprised that you decided at 63 years old that you would like to get your first pull up and then got it, because you went to New York and said, I'd like to dance on Broadway, and then did. So, this kind of drive is definitely something you two for sure share. When I interviewed Jessie, I was blown away by the amount of drive, and similarly
Yes.
for you and you guys, and just knowing that you sort of fostered that through probably what you would call a very difficult point in your life. And just knowing that that's what came out of it is that's really a heartwarming it's really a heartwarming story. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And I really love the way they were raised, actually, because it was just like a different time. Of course, you have to make all the adjustments when you change schools, and when we finally moved and I got remarried, and things change. But then she had all those sports, which were wonderful. They kept her on track. You're practicing 5 hours a day of gymnastics, and you also have to do very well in school. So there's a lot to be learned by all that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, you.
Thanks for getting in touch with the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast.
We love your questions and adore hearing from you.
Leave us a hello,
A burning question,
feedback.
or anything else you want to share with us on the podcast.
We will play your message live on air if we can.
Thanks for being an amazing friend. Stay safe and moving.
Age is just a number, and you are sort of this poster child for that concept. Your slogan is never too old, never too late. However, scientifically, biologically, we do know that there is challenges that come with being an older athlete that are not the same as what younger athletes face for challenges. We know that there is so much happening in the female body after menopause regarding
That's
building
right.
muscle, regarding maintaining muscle, regarding recovery. It's a different ball game, and I want to hear straight from you. How are you playing this game? Because it is so different than the game that you play at 35, 45. How does your training look different at your age?
First of all, I take baby steps. Like, I will jump to a bar, but I won't catch it. I'll get the feel of going to it. So I take a progression before I do anything, baby steps. It's very important to warm up all the joints too, particularly the shoulders when it comes to ninja. Um, but there, yes, the body tends to, if you do nothing, tends to have a lot of problems like bone mass. And this is what I learned after lifting weights for 2 years is I had been diagnosed with osteopenia. Now, osteopenia does happen after menopause, and actually, you lose a lot of your bone mass after that time. In fact, what the body regenerates the skeleton totally every 10 years. But when you age, the process of rebuilding that is much slower. So I didn't know what the word osteopenia meant when they said it. And actually, I have asked many, many women that I do ninja with that are much younger than me, do you know that word, osteopenia? And most of them say no, which I think is a terrible disservice because that is the step before osteoporosis. Now, if you knew that at 20, that lifting weights might stop this process from happening. Now, in every case, that's not necessarily true. But if you knew that this could do, wouldn't you start doing weight training earlier in life? Even if you do it later in life, like me, after those 2 years, and I'm like 65, I suddenly find that I had reversed it back to normal. And I think this is a huge message to get out to people because you don't even get bone density tests until, I don't know, I should have looked that up before I talked to you, but it's later. It's
Yep.
close to 50, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is important to know that you could reverse this process. And there's so many different health things that like muscle goes, you start to lose the muscle mass at age 30. And this is the organ of longevity. So it's so important to be able to remain independent as you get older by, being able to open jars and go up and down the stairs and get out of your chair. There are actually drills and exercises that you can do as you get older so that if you do fall out of a chair, how to get up. And that is where a lot of the accidents happen is that your bone mass is softer. So your balance after age 40,
Yep.
the vestibular system and your visual and all these things, it sounds terrible. That's what they mean when things go downhill if you don't fight it. And so that's what I'm saying. You can work on all these things ahead of time. So you lose your balance, and then when you fall, you can break a hip, and then that's when the process goes downhill. So these are all things that you need to work on. I do a lot of balance work, and recently, it's strange because I've had a case of the dropsies. Well, I knocked things over and I fell up going up the stairs. I just tripped on the stair. And I'm like, what is going on? I guess I got to do more balance. It's got to get back to the balance. But, the blood pressure goes up as you get older. I think it's 85% of people will have a blockage in one of their arteries and not even have any symptoms. And these things can go away with exercise. You can do resistance training with bands or just your own weight, like a push up. Um, there are ways that exercise even expands the brain. Funny thing I just read recently was there's something called the anterior mid cingulate I'm sorry, cortex.
Yes.
You know of
Mm-hmm.
this, right?
Yes, I do.
Yes. And the way it was explained to me is that when, if you just go to the same class every morning, great. But if you do something different that you don't want to do, if you challenge yourself to something, the brain actually grows. Love this thought. So I tell people when I talk to them, I go, just think if you don't want to go to that class, then go to the class because your brain is going to grow. So, that's a good way of looking at it, right? But, there's so many things. It increases your balance and your bone mass and your brain and your grip strength is so important. That's a biomarker of health. So I can get lost in all this, but I want your listeners to know that it is not too late and you're never too old because, in fact, there was a study done on people who were 90 plus, and they worked on leg strength with resistance bands. And after 8 weeks, their strength in their legs had developed up to 174% stronger.
Wow.
Now, these are people in their 90s. Um, I'll also add to that, if I don't ramble too much here, is that I do swimming and I compete in swimming. And I went to the nationals, and this is in the senior Olympics or senior games. And there were people in their 80s and 90s that were diving off blocks, doing flip turns. It was the I was so inspired by what I saw. There was one lady, many of you may have heard her name, Julia Hurricane Hawkins. She started running at age 100. And she was just amazing. And we do have evidence out there. It's just not enough. We have to have those role models that show you, hey, no, I'm not too bulky. No, I can do this. I'm not too old. And you're right. We need to see more of this and people need to hear it more. But when you hear what happens if you do nothing, I'm hoping that may inspire people even just to get out walking. Once you start walking, that helps your heart muscle. You can find a buddy. That's so important too, to walk with someone who you are accountable to. And then, just walking 5 days a week makes a huge difference. And so I usually tell people to start with that. But then you need the cardio. So you want to pace yourself a little bit faster. You can do slow walks and then pace faster and then back to slow. You can go back and forth, taking baby steps. Later on, maybe you want to take very light weights. So there are a lot of things that you can do to help, maintain some of your balance and your cardio with just walking.
I'm so glad that you not only were able to very eloquently hit on, what is happening to your body as we age, and this is a natural process, but the fact that the body is so adaptable. It is incredibly adaptable and it will adapt to its conditions. And the aging process will accelerate with no action against it, and it will decelerate with notable action. And knowing that we have this level of control, because I think so many people are just feeling a victim to aging, and switching that script that we aren't a victim and we're never a victim, that there are so many things. And like, I love the balance. I've been working so much with even my athletes in their 40s on unilateral work and balance work because it is so imperative to overall health.
Absolutely.
I'm really, really glad that you brought that up. I just think it's an area we aren't training enough, just in general fitness. I want to talk a little bit about nutrition because we have this as such a huge component when it comes to maintaining muscle mass, when it comes to all of the brain health that you were discussing, bone health. What are some of the things that you try to focus on as far as recovery when you're in the kitchen and you're thinking about the best way to support your goals at the age you're at right now?
Well, okay. Diet is such a huge issue, and there are so many different diets out there. Mine was always to get stronger. And as you get stronger, I looked at food as fuel. I didn't look at it as any other thing other than to help me to get stronger. But I did have one problem, if you'll let me expound upon that, was that I have heart disease in my family. My mom had 11 stents. My brother has already had 5 stents put, which is where they help with surgery and they open up the artery or the whatever is blocked. And that scared me. And I had like a test done, and they told me I had from 40 to 7 no from 50 to 70% occlusion in my carotid, which is the one that's right here in the neck going up to the brain. And that terrified me. And I went to a vascular surgeon, and he said, oh, they read it wrong, or we don't do anything until it's 80%. And I'm like, here we go again. Here we go again. You can't do anything about it. And I just went, there has to be something. And so I read a book about Prescription for Life is what it was called. And it was a whole new diet. And it was basically a Mediterranean diet, which is what I stick to today, with half my plate protein, half my plate vegetables. Um, I stopped all dairy, and I also stopped red meat. I know a lot of people are not going to be happy with that, but this was for a certain reason and to change something dramatically.
Right.
When I went back in 2 years, it was 40%. Now, I don't know whether that was the machine they used, the ultrasound they used, or where they actually placed the wand to check, or if it was diet. Probably all three. But I kept pretty much to that diet, except I do have red meat, once a month. I just limit how much. I don't have it every week. I have, instead of butter, I have avocado. So like if I have sourdough bread with avocado on it. Um, and then, whatever protein that I'm going to have. So I've made a lot of adjustments, and it was very difficult, but I was determined. I mean, if I could reverse osteopenia, maybe I could do that here too. And so, we'll see, since I've added, some things back into my diet. I'll see pretty soon when I have another test to see if it's changed dramatically or not. But it's something that is important for people to know their history and their
Yes.
family, so that they can watch out for these kind of things and be aware. So I think I feel much better from the diet as well. One of my biggest problems with being in Ninja and exercising as much as I do is getting enough protein. So in the beginning, I added a lot of those bars, for the fourth meal that has 20 proteins in it. And then I looked at it and I went, oh, look at all the sugar. Oh my gosh. I went, I don't want to just add something else a problem. So I really had to adjust what I had as snacks, because I couldn't get the amount of protein I needed in 3 meals. So I mean, that's kind of the long and short of the diet that I do. I don't ever have soda. I haven't had that since I was 16. And my biggest problem right now is sugar, because it comes in every single form. If it tastes sweet, it's got sugar in it. Now I have to look at the kinds of sugar. If it's cane sugar or stevia or the monk fruit, I think those kind of things I've found are supposed to be natural. But there's so many things, all those energy drinks, and you have to look at the ingredients to make sure they don't have something that's worse again. So I think you see a lot of people in the grocery store looking at the ingredient. We're all sitting there, with our glasses on and magnifying glass, trying to read everything that's in whatever you're buying. And it's just, that's my hardest thing is the sugar content, because you want to have it naturally.
It's a really great point, thinking about your person. I know everybody sort of gets wanting the one size fits all. What do you eat? You look like I want to look. You're as healthy as I want to be. So let me eat what you eat. And just how individualized it is based on so many factors, including unchangeable hereditary factors that
Right.
it just are so genetically unique to you. And saying, like, hey, the way I eat is based on my family history and my own personal health concerns, and that's not going to look the same for every person. I just think
Right.
it's just such a good reminder for
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
us.
I think it, yeah, and you also have to be vigilant in, maybe getting a second opinion or thinking about if they say it can't be done, like, oh, let me research this a little bit.
Maybe I won't wait until 80% blockage. Maybe I'll be proactive.
Right. Yeah. If there's a way, I'd like to try to find it. So, yeah, diet is a difficult thing to talk about because I know people are very strong opinions. They have very strong opinions about what they feel is right for themselves.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. But you got to know, we are able to bring you this incredible content each week and talk to you about all of the pressing matters in health and fitness because of our successful TTSL workout program.
We have incredible coaches, movement demos, and just different cycles all the time. So we take the thinking out of your training every day.
If you would like to join us, please go to ttsldaily.com and pick out your package. You are going to love every day of fitness. Along those same lines, we know that sleep changes a lot as you age. There are hormonal factors that go into sleep pattern changes, just in general, less deep sleep. And sleep and recovery are besties. So I want to know, as you've gotten into this journey, and you've needed to recover at a higher rate, what are you doing regarding sleep? How are you prioritizing it?
Oh, big time. You're hitting on all the big ones: the diet, the sleep, the sun. you, um, yes, sleep is something that I'm trying to. I don't I'm not able to go to sleep before like 10:30 at night. I just can't do it, and I have to get up at like 6. So I'm not getting a huge amount of sleep most of the time. But if I can sleep in and I can get the 8 hours, that's something I try to work towards big time. I do have a watch that tells me about my deep sleep and my REM sleep, and I wish I knew how I could just improve upon those. But when I'm very active during the day and I'm physically tired, I go to sleep much better. But I definitely have those terrible nights where I go, uh-oh, I'm wide awake. What do I do now? Do I go back in and just watch a movie and fall asleep? Do I read? What do I do? Do I count? Looking at the ceiling, there are just some of those nights that are just bad nights. I don't know what you can do about it. I've even tried the mocktails that they have with the tart cherry juice and the magnesium, and I have a magnesium lotion I put on my feet, and generally now I've got my sleep more consistent, which is one of the big deals as well. And so I feel that I'm getting better sleep most of the nights of the week.
That's excellent. I don't think it's talked about enough, especially after menopause, about how much your sleep changes and how much that has to do with hormones that are just out of your control, and all those tips and tricks, the magnesium on the feet. It's a tough battle, but I'm really invested in the importance that it plays in recovery. So
Well, the other part about sleep is you have to get up and go to the bathroom. I mean, that happens more when you're older as well.
mm,
And once you're up, sometimes you can't get back to sleep again. So there are ways of you don't drink water later in the day, but I can't stick to that because I just can't. So I mean, they say to stop like 3 hours before you go to sleep, and I'm like, no, that's just not going to happen. I have to drink some more water. I'm thirsty.
hydration, sleep, nutrition, we've got it all going on, and all we can do is just maximize what we can do.
Right.
Um, you have appeared on national TV many times. You've been on seasons of Ninja Warrior, and I want to ask you about just the pressure of being on camera. Now, I know you've been a stage performer for a significant portion of your life, so you're used to being sort of in front of it. But doing ninja on camera that's another level.
Yes, who would have expected it? Yeah, I never dreamed if I'd be doing ninja at this stage of the game. Never was in my plan. Um, it's very difficult, and I mean, there's so many skills and techniques that you need, but to be on the show, you're not allowed on the obstacles
Right.
before you do it. You get one talk through where they demonstrate the rules that you can't touch this, you have to land here, whatever they are, and they have one what they call tester who goes through it once for you. And that's pretty terrifying because you've never done it before. They used to have the same first obstacle for many years, and on season 15, which I was recently in 23, I think, 1923. I mean 2023. Sorry, I'm in the 1900s. They changed it, and that again brought all sorts of like trauma to what am I going to do, and you have to think about when you're going to eat and when you're going to exercise and when you're going to warm up, and the lights and the people and the excitement. It's all, I mean, you have lights and excitement with Broadway, um, but you have every step down pat there. Here, it's just a totally different process. And it is frightening. And the first time I was on was way too early. I was 65. I had just learned to do one pull up basically. And I had not done anything before. I'd not been in any kind of competition when it comes to ninja. So when I did get the call, you have to submit a video that shows your personality and your skill level. And they did call me. And then I'm going, Jessie, what do I do now? And she says, you better get to a competition. And so, like I said, I was really very green. And when I got up there and it was my turn, and it's in the middle of the night as well because it's outdoors. And so you don't want to have the clouds coming in and out. And, the lighting changes so much. So it really doesn't start until like 9 o'clock at night. So I was tending to be on at 12 midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
But I got up there in front of these ascending steps over water and the lights are there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Well, there's no choice now. It goes, they count you down and off you go. And I fell on the first obstacle. And I will tell you, it was one of the most devastating moments in my life. I had let down Jessie, my husband, all seniors everywhere in the world. I just couldn't understand how it had happened. It looked pretty hard because the steps were so far apart and they had such angles to them. But still, I was just totally devastated. And my daughter said to me, don't let one fall define you. You can go off and have a good life, or you can get up and train harder. And look how far you've come in just these 2 years. And my husband said, you'll do it again. And I went, what? Are you crazy? No, why would I do that? And he went, because you can. I mean, I have the skill, at least for the first obstacle in that case. Who knows what was going to be after it. But it was awful to watch the show back during the summertime. They did not show me, and I was grateful for that. But because they only show like 30, I don't know how many of the people that compete, and there are hundreds that are there. Yeah. But when I was watching the show back, the athletes make it look so easy, and it's not. And they just like went through the steps, and every time I saw them doing it, I was like, oh, why can't I do that? Why? And I got up and I trained harder. And that's what I did, and worked very hard on that first obstacle. Now I fell again, but it didn't stop me. Season 15 was, it's like 5 years after I'd been on the show again, and they did change the first obstacle, which was terrifying. But I didn't hear it until they aired the show, but they said I was the oldest person to complete an obstacle. And I'm like, what? How did that? I wish I didn't know that at the time. That's very cool. So that was a finally, if I hadn't done it again, I would never have known I could get through the first obstacle. And that's one of the things, it's the driving force for me, because I go, I don't want to be 80 and go, why didn't I do that one more time? And that's the thing that I fear. There's a lot of things I fear at 80, but one of the things is I'm going to keep training. Who knows? Maybe I'll be on American Ninja Warrior when I'm 80. That would be pretty cool.
Break your own record.
Break my own record. But you don't want to have those thoughts. You want to keep. We don't take risks enough a lot of times. We want to be so careful that, I mean, you want to take calculated risks, but you want to get out of your comfort zone. You want to try some new things. You want to get healthier. You want to be independent. You want all these things. Now it's time to go out and do it. Make an attainable goal, commit to it, make it a habit, and then build on that. And the hardest part, I think, is the mental part of getting going. Sometimes people think that, they've made it 3 months and they haven't lost 20 pounds and they haven't gotten to where they want to do, and they stop. But for me, it took 7 months of doing the personal training and working on my goals in order to just get a little bit of definition and toning. And people started to like notice, which, all of a sudden that gives you that boost. You need those boosts, and then it took an entire year to get one pull up, just because I had to develop the chest, the back, the arms, the legs, everything. So it's hard to get people motivated enough to commit. That's the hardest problem, is just the mental. It's those stereotypes like, I can't do that, instead of I can't do that yet.
You have an incredible growth mindset that absolutely, I think, translates to so many people. And the idea of giving it some time and getting out of your comfort zone is just one that I want to absolutely leave our listeners with, because just play that back over and over. Time and out of your comfort zone, and get to 80 and have maybe I should have done that. Could I have done that? Because that is really, I think, the goal of all of us, is to just eat up all our time here and get everything that we could have gotten. You're living proof. You're leading the charge. And I know it's a little bit hard to be representing all seniors everywhere on the ninja floor, but I can't think of anyone better for the
Oh,
job.
thank you. Thank you. Well, what you do today will determine your quality of life. And you just have to keep saying that over and over again. It's like, your brain is growing and as you do something that challenges you, and you're going to be able to be more independent. And that's what we all want, right?
That's what we all want. Ginny, where can our listeners hear more from you? Where can they follow your training, follow your journey, cheer you on? Because Ginny's socials are the place to be, guys. If you're not there, you are missing out.
Thank you. Instagram is where I really started. That again was helpful from Jessie, where she said, show your process on Instagram. And it also helped me see my accomplishments after I was so devastated. And that's where that started. So people can see the first pull-ups and the pull-up journey. So I have most everything on Instagram, and it's just under my name, which is, if you have show notes, you can just put that there
We'll link
too,
you.
because it is, people misspell my name all the time. But anyway, Instagram would be the place to do it. And I try to answer people when they have questions. And a lot of questions have to do with diet. A lot of questions have to do with, exercise, what you do. A lot of them recently have been about finger, and because we all have, as you get older, we have arthritis. My fingers are like huge knuckles, and I do a lot of exercises just for the fingers. So I try to get to everybody, but they don't all come to my posts, so sometimes they're hidden. But I do try to get answers to people if they have questions. I'm also on Facebook, again, under my name, and Facebook and TikTok as well.
I really encourage you, if you need a lift, to just get and we always say to our listeners, you are the algorithm that you're surrounded by. So having Ginny showing up in your feed, I guarantee you will inspire you today to just reach for anything that you might have in your life, because she is doing it and is such an inspiring thing. So
Oh, wow. Thank you so very much for that. I appreciate that. If I can inspire one person, then this is a win.
and then we've won. Um, get get connected with Ginny, follow her on social media, and thank you so much for being here today, for sharing
You're
your
welcome.
story. It's been the greatest episode. I think so many people are going to be inspired.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to your audience as well.